Caitlin's currently conducting in the vehicle.
I always thought that conducting was so interesting.
I wish I could conduct. I think it looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it looks so cool. Just like the power that you wield.
Phenomenal cosmic power.
Just like you are running the whole entire show, which is,
a Capricorn's
as a Capricorn,
dream.
my dream come true.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Ride Home podcast. My name is Abby.
Hey guys, it's Caitlin.
We are back tonight doing a normal movie, not a spooky movie.
An actual different genre than horror or thriller.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? Do you feel...
It's what a refreshing life.
You feel great?
Yeah, I feel great.
I could feel that you were itching to get out of Halloween.
Yeah. I mean, I love Halloween, love horror movies, but I'm just ready.
You're just ready.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because we just bought a new TV yesterday, and like all I kept thinking of was like, I really want to watch like a horror movie on this. Even though I just watched 31 in a row.
There's never enough.
There's never enough. So I'm going to miss it, but I am also excited to move into the award season. There's a lot of movies coming out in the next couple of months that have gotten a lot of buzz in the festival circuit.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those movies is the movie that we saw tonight, and that is Tar.
It is indeed.
So Tar is directed by Todd Field, who has directed movies before.
Okay.
They are two that I personally have not seen, but they did get, both of them were nominated for Oscars.
Oh, okay.
So, Little Children and In the Bedroom.
Do you know, it's okay if you don't, do you know how recent those movies are?
2002 and 2006, I believe.
Oh, shit. Okay, so old.
So so he's had a little bit of a gap.
Yeah.
Since
Where you been?
Yeah, what
you been up to,
Todd?
buddy?
So I will not begin to pretend like I know Todd Field or have like a really passionate opinion either way about him.
No.
So this is our only experience with Tar, and funny enough, neither of us, I think, read the synopsis or saw a trailer or really did any like looking into this movie before we saw it tonight.
Basically, we saw Cate Blanchett and we ran for the theater.
And we were like, we're in.
Yeah.
We're here.
We already like it because she's in it.
So one of the biggest mistakes that I made was that I didn't even look to see how long the movie was. We'll just say it this way. It was a 6:20 movie, and we are in the car right now recording. It is 9:37. So
yeah,
buckle up. It's a long one.
It is a long one.
I'll do a quick synopsis. Tar is fictional. This is not a biopic.
Right.
It might feel, if you do plan to go see this movie, it might feel like a biopic. It did right at the beginning. I think I immediately searched on my phone, like, is Lydia Tar real?
Right.
So the synopsis is, renowned musician Lydia Tar is days away from recording the symphony that will elevate her career. When all elements seem to conspire against her, Lydia's adopted daughter Petra becomes an integral emotional support for her struggling mother. Obviously, it stars Cate Blanchett, and it is a drama that sometimes goes into psychological thriller.
Yes.
It's listed as a drama, but I will say up front, it was genuinely terrifying at parts.
Yes.
Like, we were both nervous.
Like bone chilling.
Like, felt a little like a horror movie in certain scenes. The best vibe that I can kind of compare it to is like the feeling that Black Swan gives you on occasion. It felt very much like Black Swan.
Yes.
Before we get into more of our thoughts and feelings on this, I just ran an Instagram poll today where we asked people who have been listening if they have preferred spoiler episodes, non-spoiler episodes, or the episodes where we do 50-50, where we start with just a generic rating and then we get kind of in like the like meat and potatoes with spoilers later. And the majority of our listeners voted for 50-50.
Okay, well, that is interesting because that is actually my favorite format to record.
Well, there we go.
I
That's
have
perfect.
to say. So
Did you sneak a vote in?
I did sneak a vote in, and like I almost didn't because I was like, that'll skew the ratings or whatever. And then I was like, no, but like I have to also vote.
It didn't. There were more, like it wouldn't have been tied with.
And I
with your
also,
vote.
and I also wanted to vote just out of curiosity to see where the numbers were. And like, I know that I can check on the Ride Home podcast Instagram, but I'm lazy. And I was just on my personal Instagram and I saw the story and I was like, I'm going to vote to see where we're at. And it was honestly about half and half with spoilers, and 50-50 was where it was at.
No one said no spoilers.
No one said no spoilers.
So you guys love when
people apparently like spoilers, which is so weird to me because I hate spoilers. Like,
I know.
I get so pissed.
I know. Well, originally when we came up with this idea, we thought that maybe it would be a fun way to inform people in the same vein of like a regular written review of like whether or not you might want to see this movie. But I do think that we have both enjoyed making the episodes where we get to talk a little bit deeper about. So thank you guys for voting on that. And I'm just going to go ahead and make the little announcement that from now on, the ride home is going to be 50-50. So we will always give you our little elevator music before we're going to go into the spoiler section so that it'll always trigger you to pause it if you need to wait and listen to it at a separate time. So that being said, we're going to get into the non-spoiler part of Tar, and we are going to start as always with Caitlin's just initial thoughts and feelings coming out of the movie.
And for the first time in the history of this podcast, someone has already heard my initial thoughts and feelings. And it wasn't Abby.
It was not me.
It was the girl who works at Regal who was sweeping the floors of the theater. After we walked out of the theater, you went to the bathroom. I'm standing out there like awkwardly on my phone, like waiting for you to come out, whatever. The usher comes out of cleaning the theater and she was like, did you like this? I just have to ask you. She goes, I've heard mixed reviews. My friend saw it last night and hated it. All of the film buffs and like movie nerds love it.
Yeah.
So she's like, I just have to know if you liked it. And I was like, I think I did.
I guess.
I was like, I'm pretty sure I did.
Yeah.
But I'm still kind of processing.
It's a lot to digest.
It is a lot to digest, and it's so long.
This was an instance for me where I actually think that it would have been a much stronger movie if it was maybe like a half hour shorter.
I definitely agree.
It felt a little indulgent. Like it felt like Todd Field just was like allowed to do whatever he wanted to do.
He took a lot of liberties. One of my main issues with this movie was the things that were really important in the plot had very little time devoted to them.
Right.
And then, like, things that were very insignificant took up a lot of time.
Right. She often goes to, like, lunch with people or, like, has, like, an interview with people.
Yeah.
And they're very long, extended conversations where, like, it's basically each character just gets, like, a monologue and then they, like, kind of go back and forth on it, you know?
There were a lot of those, and they took up a lot of time from the movie, and they really kind of dragged out.
Right.
And those were not major plot points. And so then there were other major plot points, which we'll talk about kind of in the spoiler section, that were very glossed over, I felt like.
It was like almost like a tone shift every time we went to those scenes, because the rest of it almost felt like you were just watching this woman live her life. There were things that you learned in each scene and you got to know her very well throughout. But the main storyline that kept you literally, like, we were gasping. Like, I like grabbed your leg at one point because I was freaked out. We were looking at each other like, oh my God. Like, there were a lot of for lack of a better word, dramatic moments that we had really strong reactions to. And if the movie was edited down to tell that story in a really cohesive way, I think both of us would have loved it.
Yeah.
Like, best movie we've seen so far this year.
I agree. I might say that's my only hang up with this movie.
Yeah.
Is the length and the sort of belaboring of plot points that were just not important.
Right.
And wasting time, honestly. Like, just a true waste of time. And kind of like we've talked about in some other movies, sort of detracting away from those other moments.
I think it really reminded me a lot of last year. There was a Best Picture nominee that was called Drive My Car. And it was a Japanese drama. And it was a movie very similar in the sense that if you shortened it and you gave your characters more of an opportunity to just have their story be told in a concise way and like
just like condense it down.
Yeah, like condensed down. Instead, in Drive My Car, they had multiple scenes where it was just actors doing a read through of a play for like 30 minutes. And
yes,
I'm just going to be the one to say it. There's this weird thing that happens in the film community, the film industry.
Yeah.
Oh, the festival circuits and the dramas. And okay, like, I get it. You know, I always say that there are some movies that are movies and there are some movies that are films.
Sure.
And this was obviously a film.
Correct.
And I know a lot of people who really, truly love those kind of non-traditional, drawn out, kind of like portraits of a real life type movies. I understand that that's some people's style.
Sure.
I can't stand it. Because when you have these really pointed scenes where you're forcing symbolism and you're forcing us to sit in really like awkward moments just because you want, almost like you want like an artistic shock value.
Sure. Like you said, indulgent.
It's very indulgent. And in some ways, this movie reminds me a lot of the character Lydia Tarr.
Yeah.
Because she herself is incredibly indulgent.
Yes.
And there's even, like, the opening scene is a 15 to 20 minute interview that she's having on stage with this guy where she's just giving the most, like, over the top, thought through, like, the conductor, with my right hand I do this and my left hand I do that. And like totally captivating, by the way.
Yeah.
An amazing scene. And you really get to know her because you're like, oh, that's who she is. She's so full of herself.
Lady.
She's that artist where she has been told so many times that she's great, that she's lost any semblance of a personality and she now is just this artist. And the movie kind of was that.
Yeah, it really was.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I think, I'm going to agree with you and just say that was my only hang up, was that it felt very self-indulgent at times. And it really is such a shame because I'm going to say it, that was one of the best performances I've ever seen from Cate Blanchett.
Truly. If she doesn't win the Oscar for that,
bare minimum she's getting nominated.
Oh,
but
for sure.
I mean, I haven't seen other performances.
I don't care.
You're just like
I don't want to see anyone else. Like, I've always loved her.
Yeah.
She's incredible. But like you said, this was her on like this was like Cate Blanchett on steroids.
Yes. I was honestly stunned even in the opening scene. I'm gonna go back to that opening scene where she's giving the interview. She was able to use her physical body. It's funny because she's literally playing a conductor,
right? But
the thing I noticed the most was her hands. And like, I'm sure that was a choice that they made, was to have her be a very like a hand talker. But the way she moved her hands, it was like she was conducting that moment and she was conducting how people see her. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. In just her performance in that scene alone, you know everything that you need to know about her. In that one first scene.
Yep. It is sort of a dialogue because there's the interviewer, But there's moments where it's just her
just a
having a monologue. Yeah.
And she's not talking about herself. She's talking about other composers. She's talking about her mentor. She's talking about the experience of being a woman in music. And in her answers, the way Cate Blanchett delivers those answers, her body language, in that immediate scene, I was like, well, she's definitely gay. Mm-hmm. She's definitely full of herself. Mm-hmm. She's definitely either a narcissist or somebody who is very capable of convincing people that she is this great, wonderful person.
Yes.
But you could also see the darkness, and you could see like her concocting the situation, and you could see that she was manipulating conducting the scene.
Calculating. Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, I think that's the best opening scene I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah.
Because they were able, between the writing of that scene and her acting, they were able to literally tell us everything there was to know about her. In just that one scene. Incredible.
Yeah. And what's even more incredible is like we knew everything about her, and yet we still learned so much more. That was the first 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
Which means that we had 2 hours and 15 minutes to see her develop even more.
Right.
Which they 100% delivered on that.
Yeah.
Like we got to see huge developments in her life, in
Absolutely.
and even just her personality and her character. That to me is even more impressive, because I felt like the same as you. It was like we knew so much about her already. Yeah. But then it was just like completely like peeling back even more and more and more.
She was a very layered person.
Yes.
And I think especially having her be somebody who is fictional was very impressive to do, because I felt like they built her literally from her childhood to currently. You know everything about her life, and in a way that wasn't just like a ton of exposition and a ton of like characters saying specific things so that you learned it through context.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really great throughout. I
was going to say, there was just a lot of nuance and subtleties throughout this whole movie that were beautiful. Like, extremely, I don't know what else to say besides non-traditional. Like,
and I think going back to the issue that we had with the self-indulgent parts was because the movie was so successful at being nuanced and at being subtle. And then there were like 5 to 10 scenes that were very long, that were basically the opposite of subtle. It was like, let me force the most explicit symbolism down your throat. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was almost like we were watching 2 different movies, and there was one movie that we loved and like could go on talking about forever. And then there was another movie that was just like, what on earth were you doing, Todd?
Okay, so I just had a little bit of a revelation. So you know how you said like this movie is the character? Yeah. Like this movie is symbolic and representative of the character Lydia Tarr.
Right.
She does have moments where you see her, because she herself is a nuance.
Right.
Like she's the personification of the word nuance. But she has moments where you see her not be nuanced and be a little bit disheveled, or be a little bit rough, or be a little bit not as that poignant, like you're saying, that poignant kind of movement of the hands. Like there's moments where she isn't that. And so I'm wondering if that's true, then maybe these little moments in the movie were kind of like representing that about her.
It might have been. I mean,
or maybe we're just like getting really heady with it.
We might be getting heady with it, but also like this movie was heady, so like it's taking us there. But I also think that like for a general audience, this movie is not going to be super palatable.
No.
And I think if you haven't sat through a movie like Drive My Car, or like these other really long burns that have these really long scenes with like wide shots that are held for a really long time, where 2 characters are talking far away and there's no close-ups, there's no movement in the scene. And so sometimes those scenes aren't even as long as you think they are. It's just because of the way that they're framed and the way that they typically don't have music playing at all, very quiet. So those scenes feel drawn out and they feel very play-like.
Right.
I still think that a lot of times that method is just really overdone by the film world, where it's just like, that's the only way that you can have an Oscar nominated piece is to have
make a long ass movie with a bunch of self-indulgent scenes and cuts and I agree. I'm finished with giving my beef about the movie.
Okay.
Because what I would like to say now, I don't know if you have other issues with it, but what I would like to say now is that this was fucking beautiful. Like, it was beautiful to watch. It was beautiful to look at. The acting all around, I thought, was amazing.
Yeah, there wasn't a bad actor.
There really was not, honestly. I don't know. I mean, I thought it was very moving, you know, in a lot of ways, like whether it be the tension or the suspense or whatever. But
it was a roller coaster.
It was. It really was. And I think that this, for me, is going to be a little bit like Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Where it's going to take you a while
because
to like it.
Because it was so much content to, like you said, to digest. Not only for like the length of it, but just like what the actual subject matter was. That like, I'm going to need a minute on this one.
But I can sense that while you're talking it out that you're liking it more and more.
And I know that's what's going to happen. Like, this might become one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
Like, I can feel that bubbling up inside of me.
Right.
Because I'm a fucking slut for music.
Right.
And any movie about a musician.
I will say, I actually wish that there was a little bit more music in this.
We could have.
Throughout.
I definitely agree. We could have. However, I will say, I know I never played a classical instrument, but I was classically trained in opera singing. And so a lot of the rehearsal scenes for me felt extremely real. Like, it was very genuine, very authentic. And I thought those moments were actually really cool, just to kind of see her working and sort of see her brain kind of do its thing, I guess.
Right. I would say it felt very authentic throughout, except I did catch that the actress that plays the wife, like, she is also like a violinist, and I could tell that she was the only person in that room who didn't know how to play the violin.
Yeah, she was just there to act.
Yeah, she was doing her best. I think it's time to give our popcorn score.
Let's do it.
And then we'll move into spoilers.
Okay.
I'm going to let you go first.
Okay, so large popcorn for me.
Wow. You went from literally being like, I don't know, to large?
Yes.
In 20 minutes?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay, to be fair, the movie ended probably 30 minutes ago. The lady that works at Regal helped me start to process before we even started the podcast.
She was your therapist.
So
she asked the right questions.
She asked the right questions, and she got my brain working.
Yeah.
And it was too long, but it's still a large popcorn.
Yeah. I'm going to also give it a large. I think that the great parts of this experience and of this movie, and especially Cate Blanchett, even if you go into that and think, oh my God, this is the longest movie I've ever seen in my life, I don't think anybody can deny that that was a masterful performance. There were some scenes that were also just as scenes masterful, like that opening scene I was talking about, and also the subtleties and the context and the nuance of how you discover more and more and more about this woman and watch as like kind of her life falls apart.
Yes.
And unravels. And I think it was as uncomfortable as watching, there's a Black Mirror episode with Bryce Dallas Howard where like kind of like her life falls apart, and it gave me that same feeling where you're just like, you know that this person is doing it to themselves, but you still feel so uncomfortable watching it. And so for that, I gotta give it a large popcorn.
2 large popcorns coming right up. Hello, welcome to the spoiler section of this episode. This is the part where we talk about all of the good stuff.
This is the part where we talk about how she just randomly got attacked by a dog for no reason. I'm still mad about that, and I'm still mad about how we don't know where the cellist actually lives.
So, was she attacked by a dog? Or did she fall up the stairs and then she said she was attacked by a dog?
I don't even know, but she was running from a dog. And listen,
yeah.
so these are the scenes that we're talking about, where there's this there's this cellist that she keeps dropping off at her house, but the house from the outside looks very shady. We don't really know where she's going.
She lives in some sort of a little...
It looks like she's going into an abandoned alleyway.
Yeah.
And so eventually, Cate Blanchett's character, after she leaves something in the car, she goes to find the cellist, and she ends up in this dark, seedy, abandoned basement where there's a dog running around after her.
Yeah.
And then she runs from the dog and trips up the steps, and I was just like, what is this?
Right. And that was the moment, like you said, that was one of those moments that was just like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, where did we come from?
And I think so, just to give more context to everything, is that the main plot point throughout this movie is not just like, watch Cate Blanchett, even though like it could have been. It wasn't the main plot point.
Right.
The main plot point of the story was that Cate Blanchett's character, Lydia Tarr, who again is this world famous composer who they even said is like an EGOT winner. Mm-hmm. So she's like the best of the best.
Right.
We find out that she has been having inappropriate relationships with her female students and even like her assistant. We don't really know for sure if it's sexual, but it's very manipulative.
Yes.
And it's like she's leading these women on to think that there is more to their relationship than there actually is.
Yes.
Which you see that happening live in the movie with her assistant.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also hear about it in pieces revealed throughout the movie that there is a former pupil of hers named Krista who, after having an inappropriate relationship with Krista basically could not let it go and became kind of like a stalker, like a little obsessed with her and like emailed her constantly. And because of that, Lydia ruins her career and tells every single orchestra, don't hire this girl, she's crazy. Well, the girl kills herself and basically reveals to, I think that said that the parents found out, so it must have been like a note or something. The girl basically reveals that she was groomed by Tarr, and then Tarr basically like discarded her. And Tarr is basically this predator.
Right.
That story was so good and so well told that we were clinging on to each other, like wanting more information. We were just like, when are they gonna tell us more?
Yes. And to that same note, like about wanting to know more and getting more details and explanation, I need to connect that girl with the moments of pure terror.
Yeah.
Because she was the girl that we kept seeing.
Yep.
So in the interview, there was the back of a woman's head that was a redhead. There is a scene where Cate Blanchett, aka Lydia Tarr, is in her apartment alone. And you see a woman with red hair standing in the background.
Yep. There's multiple times throughout the movie, but there's also scenes where her metronome is going off in the middle of the night, or she is missing things. And basically, like, we don't know yet that this girl killed herself. We think that she's being stalked.
There.
Yeah. And obviously, given that she's dead, it's more of a haunted situation where she feels guilty and haunted by this person. But when you don't know that the person's dead and like
we didn't know, and like I'm still wiping away fear tears just talking about it and thinking about it, because the moment where we saw a woman
just standing
in the back of her house, like that was like a stranger's moment.
Okay, but the most terrifying moment in the entire movie was there's a relationship in the movie that is very special, and it is between Tarr and her adopted daughter. Tarr's wife even says this to her, that the only relationship in Tarr's life that isn't transactional is with her daughter. So she actually loves her daughter.
Yep.
and they have a great relationship, and her daughter also really trusts Tar and loves her and sees her for like an actual person and not this like figure that everybody else sees her as. And so obviously throughout the film, Tar has been haunted by this woman, not like actually haunted. This is just not a ghost story, just haunted in her head. And then there's this scene where her daughter is asking for her comfort in the middle of the night because she can't sleep. And her daughter looks straight into the camera. And does Tar like look back and it's like she's like, what do you see, kind of a thing?
Yes, she sees her daughter look over her shoulder, which is when she looks into the camera. So she's looking like, basically they're kind of in like an embrace almost, and so Tar's kind of like, her head is, they're facing opposite directions, and so she sees her daughter's, literally you just see her eyes shift.
Oh my god, I get like, I still have chills.
I just got chills. You see her eyes shift over, like she sees someone or something, and then Lydia turns around and there's nothing.
And that's the thing, is that like the recognition, obviously, you know, it's like symbolic that the child recognizes that there's something wrong with her mom, and there's something that's lurking, whether or not it's, again, it's not, this isn't a ghost story, but that was the first moment that any other person in Tar's life recognized or saw any of these other things that she was seeing and hearing. Like, she was really sensitive to sounds, and she kept hearing specific things going off, and having this little girl who, again, is the only person that sees Tar for who Tar is, like, deep down and like the good side of her.
Right.
Having her literally like staring at whatever is haunting her. I was just like, whoa.
That was fucked.
It was fucked, but so good.
But so good.
That was one of the best scenes, I think, in the whole movie.
We both were like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, and I just got fear tears and chills again.
Yeah.
Like, talking about it.
So again, it's like this whole thing where you have that scene, and then you also have two scenes, actually, where she's just eating lunch with this old composer, and they're just chatting.
Who looks like my dad.
Who looks, I'm not exactly like your dad, but he looks like the British version of your dad.
Yeah.
And it was so wild to me, because even like his posture was the same, and I was like, what?
It was so precious.
British Jim.
Yes, he looked just like my dad. Speaking of dads, that was a really horrible connection.
I was like, was there a dad in this?
Well, Tar introduces herself to her child's bully as the child's father.
Oh yeah.
Which was such a fucking boss like move.
She's such a badass,
like,
in this movie.
She also said it in German, which to me was even better.
Yeah.
Like, she was like, I'm Petra's father, but it was in German. And I was just like, stop.
Her German, I don't know German fluently, obviously. I know a couple phrases here or there, but it sounded very natural.
Yeah, she sounded great.
Yeah.
I mean, of course she would. Like,
she was really successful too at like floating in and out of the German, because her character lives and works in Berlin. Right. And so she basically was doing, I don't know what the German word for Spanglish is, but like Germlish.
Yeah.
Germglish.
Anyways, the connection I was trying to make is another little detail about Tar that comes really right at the end of the movie, where we get to see where she came from.
Yeah, that was great.
And we get to find out that her name is actually not Lydia.
It's fucking Linda.
Her name is Linda, and her last name was Tar, but it was Tarr.
Yeah.
And she changed it to Lydia Tar with an accent.
Yep.
And she also, not only is her name Linda, and she came from
it looked like Staten Island, maybe.
Yeah, I think it was. And just like a old podunk house on Staten Island.
Walls.
Yeah, like an old ass house.
And like her brother with a heavy accent was there, like just checking the mail. And I think one of the best things about that whole scene was that, you know, this is after the girl killed herself and told the parents, and then it all tumbled, and basically her assistant eventually turns on her too. And that just leads to her completely losing her entire career.
Unraveling.
Yeah. And so I think one of the best parts about that scene when she was at her childhood home was that her brother, even though she was one of the most famous people in the world and is currently going through the biggest like cancel moment of any person, like she's literally going from having like this huge symphony being recorded and everybody looking forward to it to not even having a career.
Canceled. Yeah.
My favorite thing was that her brother just walks in and is checking the mail, doesn't even like care that she's there, and just goes, "Hey, Linda,"
and he says, "Or sorry, Lydia."
Sorry, Lydia.
Yeah.
And it was just like one of those things where you know that he's so sick of her bullshit. Like,
yes. Like, listen, if she's from Staten Island, they've been sick of her bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Your name is Linda. You're not special.
Uh-huh.
All of that shit. I think that I also agree. And he was just like, yeah, Mom said you're probably going to be here. Like,
yeah.
It was just like, she just came home for Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah.
Like, it was just a normal day.
That was a really nice, a nice moment and a nice scene. I thought that
it's just like some of the details of this movie are just impeccable.
Now, another favorite part of mine, and I think it's probably a favorite part of yours, is when we see the beginning of her symphony start, and it's you see the trumpeter that she put off stage to create this like distant sound, and you're like, oh, this is it, and she's in her tuxedo and she's ready to walk out, and the music builds. And then you realize she's not the fucking conductor.
Yes.
And she
literally yeeted that
yeets
guy
him
right off of the conductor stand.
The best part is that the conductor is this wildly unlikable dude that has the worst haircut I've ever seen.
Yes, and he's been trying to steal her ideas like ever since the movie started. Yes. And like she hates him, and so she just like catapults him off of the podium.
It was so
and then beats
satisfying.
him up. Like, it was so fucking boss. And they had to like escort her off of the stage.
It was incredible. And I think that was one of the things where I felt so emotionally conflicted throughout, because I know she's a shitty person and like is a narc probably.
Yeah.
And is so manipulative and has used and abused people, including her own wife.
Right.
She basically used her wife
to get that position.
Because her wife is first chair violinist for this symphony. And so basically she wooed her wife and then convinced her wife to give her like all the inside scoop so that she could figure out how to become the conductor of the Berlin Symphony, which is like a huge symphony.
Right.
Even though you know all of these things and you know she's manipulative and you know she's honestly a predator, they did such a good job of having you also simultaneously like kind of fall for it too.
Yeah.
Like you fall for it. She tricks us into liking her.
She certainly tricked me.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, obviously a large part of it is just Cate Blanchett being Cate Blanchett. But
but she had like big masculine energy in this.
Yeah, she did.
And we all know that that's what I come to see. So
that's why you're here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think overall the best thing about this movie, besides just her performance, is just the complexity of her character and how much it's just watching all of those layers unpeel and become exposed throughout. It was just like it was a treat.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah. I am glad to hear you like it, because to be honest, in the theater, I thought you hated every second of it.
Really?
Yeah, because you kept like rolling your eye. You kept doing like like you kept like what?
Listen, because
you were so frustrated.
I was so frustrated at like the delivery of some of the information was just not enough for me. But then later, like I pieced it all together and I'm processing. I'm telling you, I have had the same reaction to everything everywhere all at once.
So if you plan to see this movie, have patience.
Yeah.
Let it go where it needs to go. Don't think you're going to get a lot of information from the start. You're not.
You will not. You're not going to get it when you want it.
No.
And you're never actually going to get all of the pieces that you want. So you just have to trust the process.
That movie was one of the biggest exercises in trusting the process I think I've been through in a theater in a long time.
And that challenged me.
That was
in a big
challenge.
way.
It was. But I'm very glad we decided to go see this.
Me too.
I think it was a really nice change of pace.
So cool.
All right, everybody, that does it for us. And next week, very excited because Black Panther Wakanda Forever comes out.
Yes.
I know it's getting really hype reviews from the premiere, so very excited to get back into Marvel. I feel like it's been a long time.
It's been a minute.
So we're super excited for that. So check out our next episode next Friday. Go give us a follow on Instagram if you haven't already, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for joining us on the ride out.